The base, however, was a disaster. I wonder where all my resin went, and then I turned it over, of course. The pressure pot had imploded it. Hiya, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonfish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to be playing around with the Let's Resin jar mould. Now, I haven't used it before. I was going to purchase one, and Let's Resin kindly sent me one to try, but I did purchase one anyway, so I've got two. I'm excited to try this one. Practical resin is always something that I really love. So yeah, let's have a look how I got on with the jar mould. So the Let's Resin jar mould in its little box. Nicely packed with a very informative leaflet. And a very rustly bag. They're always good quality Let's Resin. I have no doubts about that. So this one I've called the Glitter Heart Inlay. It's basically going to be two different pours. The line on the mould depicts where to pour if you're going to do it in two halves, and it does really help if you haven't got a deep pour resin. So I'm using Ultra Light Purple, which is a premium epoxy pigment from Just For You Online UK, and Vista Cascade, which is a medium depth resin. And I'm using the spatula to guide the resin so it doesn't go all down the edge of the mould inside. With the lid, I'm just filling it almost to the top. "24 hours later, and it's time to do the second pour. And I'm going to be using some of Yvonne's glitters from Resin Supplies Den, which is a small Facebook group here in the UK. The colours are Chunky Fine Aurora, and Fine Megan. And I'll put you a link for Resin Supplies Den in the description box below. So I've decided to go for it with the bright pink and the white, and I thought I would combine the two. I do end up putting all three bags in this. I really wanted it so sparkly, and I thought the white would make it more baby pink, and it is gorgeous. So once I've mixed them completely together, then it's time to add the resin. Now the lid only needs a touch because I'm going to add a red heart. Now sometimes I just pour in extra resin into random moulds, and my heart mould is quite common. I pour in extra resin and I end up with various different colours of hearts, but I always tend to use them eventually. So what I thought I'd do was put a heart on the lid of this pot. So I put a little bit of glitter in the lid, some clear resin because I don't want the heart to be completely taken over by glitter, and as it's just a little at the top, I can pop the heart on and it'll be slightly submerged, but hopefully will just sit there in the middle. With the base, I'm just going to pour the whole lot of glitter in there. These jar moulds take about 160 ml of resin. That's the jar and the lid together. 160 ml. So the following day it was time to demould, and I thought I'd leave some of the squeaky sounds in for you. They demoulded like a dream with a little bit of help from isopropyl alcohol, which I always use, and yeah, pop right out. These did go into my pressure pot. I put most things in my pressure pot. I love my pressure pot. The lid went on beautifully. This is a gorgeous little pot and really simple to make. So you know I love drusies, right? I had to make one with a drusie. So I've cut a piece of druzy and I've put it into the mould. I used 100% silicone oil on the back so that it kind of attaches itself to the silicone mould, and I'm pouring in black tinted resin. That's a Let's Resin black tint. All the materials I use will be linked in the description box below. With the lid, I've put a flat piece of druzy on the lid which doesn't come up above the lip. And to start with, I'm just going to fill it up to just above the druzy so that I can get all the air bubbles that will get stuck in the druzy, because they're notorious for air bubbles. So I'm using a silicone tool to go over the druzy to get rid of all those little pesky stuck bubbles, and then I'm just filling it up with resin. 24 hours later, and I was so excited for this one. It came out of my pressure pot and the lid looked beautiful. A black tint can give it something special. Demoulding day is so exciting. Putting up a little bit of a struggle, this one. But the isopropyl alcohol soon helped out. And with a little levering, the druzy just came out really nicely. So on the lid, it's completely shiny and flat. It's only inside that is the druzy, so it won't fill up with dust. The base, however, was a disaster. I wonder where all my resin went, and then I turned it over, of course. The pressure pot had imploded it. It needed something in the middle to stop it imploding, and the first one I poured only poured half the amount. Nice druzy effect though. It's a shame it looks like a gaping fish mouth or something. So this has happened to me before, but with a very heavy substance, i.e. stone dust, and with a really cheap mould. This is a solid mould. So what I thought I'd do was fill up the middle, and it just so happens I had a mould that fitted the mould. So I started again. The lid was fine, so I had to do the same colour again or it wouldn't match. So I went for the druzy with some silicone oil on the back and made sure it was nice and tightly against the outside edge. And when I was happy with that, I decided to put another piece of druzy on the inside of the bottom. I filled it up with the same colour, black. This time I didn't measure it very well. I know it's 160ml because I've measured it, but I wasn't doing the lid this time. Made sure all the bubbles are out and I put it back in the pressure pot. The next day I checked the pressure pot and my mould inside the mould had worked very well. Had to take it out before I could demould it though, and I nearly forgot that. If you've got any questions or comments about this video, then use the section below and I'll get back to you. And a thumbs up is always really appreciated. Don't you just love those sounds? Everything seems to be in place. There is a danger when you put a druzy into something like this, that it might get trapped in the middle of your mould if it hasn't attached to the side, but this one worked fine. And even the inside one came out beautifully. If only I had long fingernails. I could have just reached for a pair of tweezers. They were literally an arm's reach away. Lazy people take the most pains apparently, but it's gorgeous. It worked like a treat and I love it. You might be able to tell by now I really love this mould. With this one I'm going to be doing the pearl method, so I'm going to be using interference pink, interference violet, interference green and interference blue, and putting them all together. I'm also going to be using Peacock Blue from Just For You Online UK, and that's a gorgeous dark blue paste pigment. The plan is to put all the interference colours together and it reacts with itself to give a pearlescent effect, and it's really beautiful. So with the lid I just poured all 4 interference colours in but left a slight gap at the top. With the base I'm using the rest of the interference colours and then I'm going to backfill it with the dark Peacock Blue. Now I am going to do this straight away, I'm not curing it in between, it's all from the same batch of resin. And if the colours blend I'm more than happy, but I suspect that there's going to be a line and I'm happy with that too. This is one of my favourite blues. It's so beautifully clear. It takes a little bit of mixing, and maybe I didn't mix it quite enough. And there's obviously some foreign body in my resin. That was annoying, but no harm done. I had to quickly make up some more blue because I've run out. And I know it takes 160ml because I measured it. What am I like? So 24 hours later and it's time to finish off the lid. Now I'm not going to demould in front of you because you've seen the demould, you know what that's like. I'll show you at the end how they turned out. But the lid I wanted to do something different with. And if you remember recently I made this. I made this from a mould I made myself. I love it, I absolutely love it, and I thought it would go absolutely perfectly on the lid. So I just used a small amount of clear epoxy resin to embed it on top of the lid. And 24 hours later I can pop it out of the mould. And because I made it with the same interference colours, it works beautifully. My final version is the reverse ink chop, and I will be using the Let's Resin alcohol inks in the colours peachy red, purple, green and yellow. Now my instinct was not to put green in it, and I should have listened to my instinct. I'm trying to add green into things and I wish I hadn't. It would have looked so much nicer without the green. However, I managed to save it. I did not like the way the lid went. It was too shallow for a reverse pour. So the minute I put any kind of liquid in there was no room to put any more colours. So I either left it with 2 colours or I tried to put them on top. I ended up making a right mess of this lid, and I decided in the end just to cover it with white and do something else with it. So the following day I just made up a little bit of white 2-part epoxy resin and I gave it a white top coat. And I didn't really know what I was going to do with it at this point. Do I put something else on top? I don't know. Will it look nice as white? I don't know. This one didn't quite go according to plan, but I will explain why. If you put all these colours together, you're going to end up with brown. Now if they stay separated, you'll see the different colours. When you see through an area that's clear and the area behind has the same colours, then you'll see brown. And although it's not brown, it's going to look brown. And that's what I didn't like about it. So I filled it with white glitter, so you can see what I mean. All the colours are separated, but because you can see through, they look brown. And with the lid, I decided to add a faithful tattoo that cures most things. Don't you just love tattoos? These are the type that go on your skin. They're easy to use, a little bit of water and they'll stay where they're put. So I drew around the lid, cut it out, popped it on the top and sprayed it with water, making sure to take off the plastic film. So spraying it with a little bit of water, it only takes a few seconds. As soon as it's wet enough, that paper just comes away and you can slide it off and have a beautiful tattoo on your surface. Now that needs protecting, so to protect it, I thought UV resin. It's simple, it's quick, and Let's Resin UV resin is lovely to use. I just popped it on, used a paintbrush to take it to the edges, and cured it. This jar mould was a lot of fun, and even with the mishaps that I had, I still ended up with 4 beautiful jars. I love all of them. I think my favourite is the red heart. What do you think? Which one do you like best? You don't need a pressure pot to make these jars. I have one so I use it, but you don't have to use it. You don't have to have deep pour resin for this. I used Vista Cascade. It's a medium depth resin, and even when I filled it to the top, it did not overheat. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope it's inspired you to do some resin and to be creative. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Come back and see me next week because you never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week, happy crafting, and bye for now.